What's this then? Another video about a tanking build? Sam, what is this gobbledygook? Look, what can I say? I like surviving, and I kind of like it when the DM just gets a little bit frustrated by the fact that my character never goes down. Ever. Welcome to the Attic Dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether you prefer full plate or half plate, I'm here to help you with everything. Maybe you remember, but I already made a video about having a ginormous health pool, which is one way of tanking. Today we're approaching a completely different way of tanking, namely having a very superb armor class. Armor class allows you to avoid most of the weapon attacks coming at your face and a fair amount of magic as well. So, as per usual, I will present two builds. I'll take both of them all the way up to level 8 and talk about all the specifics that you need to know to have the highest armor class known to mankind. But as per usual, I start off with the common ground. I talk about what my two builds have in common. Let's get going. Oh, by the way, don't forget, if you actually like what I'm doing, YouTube has invented something wonderful called the subscribe button. I kindly invite you to press it and see what happens. There is one bit of common ground we're going to have a look at today, and that is the race. Which race, you might wonder? Well, you shouldn't be wondering, it's quite obvious. We're going to be playing Warforged. Why? All Warforged gain a +1 to armor class. Alongside that very nice little bonus, they also have resistance against poison damage, an advantage on saves versus poison effects, and they can't just steal your armor because it's kind of glued to your robot-y body. So once you have that really nice armor class, people aren't just going to steal it away from you in the night. So Warforged it is. The fact that they also get a bonus to Constitution and a flexible ability score point really helps to really make any class work for this giant hunk of metal. So let's attach some more metal to our metal man. So our first build is called the Forge Fighter, an obvious build that mixes the Forge Cleric and the Fighter. As per usual, we will start with our ability scores using the Warforged +2 to Constitution and the +1 to whatever I managed to achieve by using point buy, of course. 16 strength, 13 dexterity, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, 14 wisdom, and 8 charisma. You might wonder what my plan is with that very dodgy dexterity score, because if I want to be tanky, why don't I just invest those points in constitution? It's only at a measly 14. Sam, what are you doing? You'll see in a few moments. Trust me, 14 constitution is more than enough to get us started. Remember, we're going for armor class, not necessarily hit points. So now that we've gotten our ability score sorted out, we can start building our actual character. Our first level will be a fighting level, mainly for proficiencies. I am very aware that the Forge Cleric also gains heavy armor, but he does not gain martial weapon proficiency. So to keep our options open when it comes to weapons, we will start as a fighter. By the way, for your starting weapon, please take a rapier. You'll see why later on. And don't worry, it's not because you're taking a finesse weapon that you have to use dexterity while fighting with it. You can just grab a rapier and whack people with it with your 16 strength. Don't worry, rapier, shield, basic heavy armor is going to do just fine. As a fighting style, of course, we grab the defense fighting style, which gives us another armor class on top of the one we already get from being a Warforged. That means that our level 1 Forge Fighter has 20 armor class, which is actually very high for a level 1 character without any magical support. At level 2, our beep boop robot guy is going to get some divine inspiration and pick up a position as a Forge Cleric at his local temple. Now, mind you people, when you do stuff like this, you mix classes that maybe aren't super obvious, or in general, and whenever you mix classes, work it into your backstory or into the way that you play. I always encourage creative builds, even if they're a bit min-maxy on a certain aspect like this one is going to be, but they go from being creative or maybe a bit annoying to awesome when you manage to incorporate them into a nice character concept and you roleplay this really well. Maybe your Warforged is genuinely interested in being able to create things himself, and that is why he worships a god of creation and becomes a Forge Cleric. Sounds like a nice idea, which allows you to build a solid character on top of the already solid armor class that you'll be having. But level 2, of course, cleric stuff, Forge Cleric, that means we will be getting the amazing Blessing of the Forge ability, which allows us to every day, for the duration of the day, turn one piece of armor or one normal weapon into a magical piece of armor or a magical weapon of the +1 variety. We, of course, will enhance our own weapon to bump our armor class up to 21. Cleric also means you get some spell casting. We'll start with some cantrips. I always like guidance. Guidance is good stuff. And take up either Sacred Flame or Toll the Dead to have a nice ranged cantrip to shoot down some things that are trying to run away from you. You get some utility, you get some ranged game. Huzzah, that's good stuff. For level 1 spells, there is one obvious one here. It's an extra 2 armor class for 2 minutes, sir. Yes, sir, we are talking about Shield of Faith. At this point, you can only cast it 2 times a day, but that's 20 minutes of fighting at 23 armor class at level 2. It'll do. Believe you me, it will do. I don't really care what else you pick up for your spell repertoire. Pick something nice, pick up some utility, something blasty. I really don't care. If you want to go all out from the start, but this is a bit dodgy and won't last forever, grab Ceremony and marry yourself to another player character. Why? Why would you do that at level 2 when you hardly know these people? When you get married through the Ceremony spell, and it doesn't state anywhere that you cannot marry yourself, by the way, for 7 days you'll have an additional +2 armor class as long as you're near each other. And I believe near each other is defined as 15 feet, I believe. If you would do that, that would mean that with Shield on, Shield of Fate rather, you would have 25 armor class at level 2. The catch is, of course, you can only get this buff again if you remarry after becoming a widow or a widower. So that's it really. It's a one-time use. If I would be an evil power gamer, I would say you conspire with your fellow player that he dies every 7 days, brings in a new character, and you marry the new character. But let's not do that really. It's a one-time trick you can do to buff your armor class, but it should be used again as maybe a reward for some really good role playing, that you get to the point where marriage might be an option and then you get this lovely armor class bonus. It should not be a part of your base build. We're going to stick with Cleric for the next few levels. Level 2 doesn't give us that much more spell slots to blow on Shield of Fate or anything else that you might find useful to cast. Level 3 in Cleric gives you level 2 spells, of course. Pick up what your party needs. Does the party need more damage? Spiritual Weapon is going to be your friend. Does the party tend to die a lot? Grab Aid. Aid adds more maximum HP to 3 people in the party. I know we're going for an armor class build, but hey, extra tank is extra tank, and you can actually also beef up your other party members. I really like Aid, but look at the Cleric list. It is incredibly diverse. Look what your party needs and just grab those spells. The good stuff happens at Cleric 4, so level 5 in total, when we can pick up an ability score increase or a feat. And we are going to go for the feat in this case. Our ability scores are decent. We have the 16 strength to whack people in the face. That is good enough for now. We're going to pick up the defensive duelist feat. What the feat does is the following. While you are wielding a finesse weapon, with which you are proficient, of course, and another creature attacks you in melee and they actually hit you, you can use your reaction to add your proficiency modifier to your armor class for that one attack. At this point, that is a +3 modifier, and it might cause an attack to miss. You might think, Sam, a lot of creatures have multi-attack. If this giant bull swings at me with a hammer 3 times in a row, being able to parry one, isn't that just a bit sad? Well, you should count on the fact that you're already incredibly high armor class with Shield of Fate, with the Forged Domain benefits, Warforged, fighting style, what have you. You have a very high armor class already at this point. It's going to block at least one of the 3 attacks. If you can block the other one with Defensive Duelist, there's only 1 attack left that might hit you, or maybe it doesn't. This feat needs obviously a finesse weapon, which is why I had you grab the rapier at the start, and it also needs 13 dexterity, which explains why my attribute scores were a bit all over the place. The added advantage of this thing is that your dex score isn't horrible. Traditionally, heavy armor characters dump dex because if you got armor class from plate, why you need it from dex? But this way, your dex save is actually kind of okay as well, and you might actually manage to dodge a fireball at some point. Anyway, we can now add +3 to our armor class once per round. The great news is for this feat that it grows with you. Obviously, your proficiency bonus is something that goes up every so many levels, so this feat scales with you and will protect you all the way up to level 20. If I counted this one out correctly, right now with the feat you can go up to 26 armor class, which is incredibly strong. Other stats tend to scale rather quickly. Armor class is not one of them. At the beginning you can bump it up a bit by buying better armor. The difference between chainmail and plate is obviously there, but afterwards you're stuck on with finding magical armor, which doesn't happen all that often. So being able to increase your own armor class on demand is really good. We're not there yet though. On to level 5 cleric, so level 6 in total. Level 3 spells give us more power on the battlefield, so we're more than just a lump of solid armor walking around. Protection from energy is a nice spell to look out for here. If the DM tries to one-up you by throwing a lot of different elemental stuff at you and saving throws and you're failing those, this Forged Domain spell allows you to resist 1 elemental type for up to an hour. That'll show the person who spent hours preparing your weekly entertainment. No, but really, if you're playing Descent into Avernus, for example, and at these lower levels you're getting hit by a lot of fire damage by some devils, this can give you the edge. Alongside with your heavy armor class, you can now also survive firebolts and what have you that might get through your armor. So it's good stuff, really. Fire resistance is maybe a silly example though, because we are a Forge Cleric, and at level 6 Forge Cleric, so level 7 in total, we gain resist to fire damage, but even better, we gain another armor class point while wearing heavy armor. I mean, just keep piling on those single points of armor class for one big walking tank. Mind you that all the armor class scores that I've given you were all with the starter chainmail in mind. As I said, you can upgrade your armor class by finding better gear. Chances are that by level 7 you've managed to grab a suit of plate mail somewhere, which will add another 2 armor class to the entire shebang. So for your 8th level you get the choice. If you want to continue the tanky path, you can probably pursue your clerical career. Take cleric all the way up to 17 because the Forged Cleric does gain resistance to most forms of physical damage there, which is really nice. If you want a bit more of a powerhouse that is capable of attacking as well, Fighter might be the way to go after you've reached Cleric 8. You know that clerics at level 8 get a bonus to some basic stuff. In this case, you get a bonus to your attack. If you hit something with an attack, you can add more damage. Might be fun to combine that with Fighter 5 for extra attack, so you have more chances of actually triggering that bonus damage, because you do have it every turn, but it's kind of sad with the cleric only ever having 1 attack that if you miss, you don't get to trigger the bonus damage. So if you go Fighter 5 and have the 2 attacks, you have more chances of triggering that attack. Those are 2 parts that I give you. Just to give you some reference here, I'll tell you the armor class numbers that you have if you have plate, which should be achievable by 7th level or whatever, it shouldn't be too difficult to rustle up a suit of plate. Plate armor, shield, Warforged bonuses, your own Forge Cleric enchantment, and your fighter defensive style will put you at 24 armor class. If you cast Shield of Fate on yourself, that would obviously put you at 26, and whenever you use Defensive Duelist, you will be at 29 armor class for 1 round. That is still an insane number for not having any fancy armor or items or what have you. This is all what you get from your kit. And of course, don't forget, if you want to get really crazy, you can always get married and pop it up to 31. But still, keep in mind, this is not an advertisement to abuse the ceremony spell. This is just there for the big min-maxi factor. You can get married for 2 armor class. If some weird DM ever does decide on giving you actual magical armor, you can still buff your weapon instead and whack people a bit more. Enjoy being a walking tank of plate armor. Your deck saves aren't half bad, your utility is really good thanks to your cleric levels. You won't push out the most damage, but who cares? You won't die, which means that you'll win eventually. Our second build of the day is going to be something relatively casual. Originally, I wanted to cross the utility and infusions of an Artificer with the lovely boost to saving throws of a Paladin, but it is really hard to make that build min-maxi on armor class and get the saving throws online by level 8, which I always aim to do, so I scrapped the plan and we're going to build a normal Artificer. Well, normal, meh, you'll see. Ability scores. First, of course, we get that floating bonus from being a Warforged again. You might expect me to put it in intelligence, but we are not doing that. We're going to put it into dexterity for now. Together with our +2 to constitution, that will allow us to have 12 strength, 16 dexterity, 16 constitution, 14 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 8 charisma. This obviously seems like a very weird build for an Artificer, but hang on, it'll make sense once I get the levels rolling, alright? So, for level 1, you obviously also want to know which spells to take. Cantrip-wise, I'm always a big fan of just taking utility cantrips with the Artificer. You are quite proficient with weapons, especially with our very high dexterity. Our crossbow will be quite up to par and will actually be better than whatever spell we can rustle from our arsenal. So, I don't know, pick up the usual stuff. Mending is always good on an Artificer, of course, especially since we'll be going Battlesmith and it can be used to repair our Steel Defender. Mage Hand, Guidance, Message, you know the drill. Pick stuff that you like. When it comes to level 1 spells, Absorb Elements is going to be a big friend here. Going to cover for our elemental damage aspect. It allows you to soak a bunch of damage from any element and then return it to an enemy through a melee attack. So it's just the absorbing part that we're interested in. Other good stuff is either Fairy Fire or Grease, because you know it or you don't know it, but a tank's job on the battlefield is not just to be there and not die. You're also supposed to bring some battlefield control one way or another. And both Grease for impairing your enemies or Fairy Fire for helping your enemies, your friends rather, kill your enemies way quicker thanks to the constant advantage is going to help a lot. So those are the spells I would suggest for level 1. At level 2, of course, we gain our infusions, the bread and butter of every Artificer ever. Obviously, we're going to pick up the enhanced defenses infusion here, which allows us to infuse a +1 bonus onto an armor, a bit like the Forge Cleric can do at level 1. The bonus here is that once we reach level 10, the +1 will become a +2 bonus. So enchant your armor, pick whatever infusions you like. Otherwise, if you fight with a crossbow, repeating shots pretty good. If you want to help out friends, look for nice magic items to replicate. The amount of stuff that you can create as an Artificer truly is unparalleled in ways that you can help your party. The catch is you only learn 4 and can have 2 active at any given time. And obviously your magic armor is going to be active all the time, because that's what we're here for. armor class. Level 3 is of course very important. We are going to choose our subclass, and I think I've said it already, we're going to become battlesmiths. Battlesmiths on their own don't bring a huge buff to armor class, but they do bring two important things. One, the shield spell is always prepared for us. Shield is very nice. As a reaction, when an attack targets you, hits you, you can cast this spell and you gain +5 armor class for the entire round. That is very good. That means we can sit at 25 armor class for an entire round. The other thing that we get is our Steel Defender, which is our pet, and you can use the pet to hinder opponents and give them disadvantage when they're not attacking the pet, actually further enhancing your defenses or your allies' defenses by hindering your enemies. Of course, usually Battlesmith also means that you can use your intelligence score as your attack ability score, let's say. So instead of strength or dexterity, you can use intelligence. We're not going to do that just yet, because at this point our dexterity is still higher than our intelligence, because I'm doing weird stuff again. So just keep whacking people with finesse weapons for one more level, because at level 4, of course, we can up our ability scores. And that is, in this case, what we're going to do. You know, I'm a big fan of level 4 feat, but since our intelligence is only at 14 and our spell preparation and some of our future abilities depend on our intelligence score, we are going to buff our intelligence score to 16. So at this point, you can attack with, I don't know, pick a stat, dexterity or intelligence. Actually, the good stuff is, of the high dexterity stat is also that you can normally only use intelligence if you're attacking with a magic weapon. And because we have a high dexterity, you're still capable of handing out your buffed magic weapon to an ally and still having a very strong attack stat yourself. So it's not a complete waste of stat points, and it won't be later on in the build for sure. Level 5, while being a really good level for Battlesmith Artificers in general, is not a really good level for our build. I'm going to go over the stuff anyway. You get extra attack, which is of course important for your damage output, and you get access to second level spells, including invisibility, heat metal, lesser restoration, a lot of good stuff that you can bring to the party. Our good stuff though is at level 6, where we gain extra infusions, and the most important one we can take is the repulsion shield. On its own, it's a simple concept. You can your shield has 4 charges, and you can use a charge when you get hit to push something away. But more importantly, it adds another armor class to our build, giving us 21 base armor class and 26 when we're casting shield on top of shield. So in between, a very decent armor class again, and having both the shield spell and the absorb element spells to use as a reaction, and your Steel Defender to impose disadvantage on enemies not targeting the dog or sheep or whatever you made out of it. You are actually really tanky already, even though your armor class on paper isn't as high yet as the previous build. But no worries, we're climbing upwards and upwards, ever onwards. 7th level doesn't really give us anything for our build. You do get Flash of Genius, an enormously fun ability that allows you to help your allies when they fail skill checks and saving throws. At level 8, however, we're not going to take an ability score increase. We're going to pick up the medium armor mastery feat. Considering that by now you will probably have picked up a set of half plate, this is actually really good. It will bump up your AC by another +1 because our dexterity is 16. Normally medium armor only gains a +2 bonus from dexterity on top of its base armor, but with medium armor mastery that becomes +3, hence the 16 dexterity that we took. Also, you will no longer have disadvantage on stealth checks. You're now effectively a ninja in plate armor. So with all these buffs together, you have a base armor class of 23, and when shielded up, you have 28 for an entire round. It is slightly lower than the previous build, but the buff lasts longer. Shield lasts for an entire round and does as much as Defensive Duelist and Shield of Fate together. It also can be broken. Don't forget that Shield of Fate is still a concentration spell and can be broken. So at this point, this build is still slightly lower on the armor class scale, But whereas the other build kind of caps out at level 8 with easy armor class that they can gain from their own set of skills, this level will gain 3 more armor class over the next 2 levels. At level 9 you get access to level 3 spells, and artificers can prepare haste as a spell. Obviously haste is really good, plus 2 armor class, an extra attack and double movement speed, so at that point you will be sitting quite comfortably on 25 armor class, which can go up to 30 with shield, and at level 10 your armor, your magical armor infusion becomes a +2 infusion. So how about, you know, how about 31 armor class on a pretty regular basis? That sounds pretty awesome, right? Further down the road, you don't get +3 armor from being an artificer, but at the end of the ride, if you go full artificer, their level 20 ability allows you to gain a +1 bonus to your saving throw per attuned item that you're wearing. And guess what? Artificers are allowed to wear up to 6 attuned items by then. So that effectively buffs your saving throws by +6. So a full-on artificer build isn't just an incredible armor class tank with a decent D8 hit die, but is also really good at saving throws, actually. Further on, you can use your ability score increases naturally to buff up your intelligence. It would be good if it would be at least 18 at the end. 20 is even better. But there you go. The Artificer is actually very capable of becoming an armor class tank. At level 8, it maybe lags slightly behind the Forge Fighter, but it will surpass it in the coming levels. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Our heavy metal builds are done. 2 very solid armor class tanking builds. Let me know what you think of them. Let me know if you would change anything to them. If anyone would be able to squeeze out a very good Paladin Artificer build that comes online by level 8, let me know in the comments down below. And if you don't want to let me know, I hopefully will see you again in 2 weeks in the Attic Dungeon.